All right, what's going on, you guys? Nick here with Nick's on the Power. So yesterday we went through the men's open bodybuilding qualified competitors for the 2018 Olympia. In this video, I want to go through the 2018 Classic Physique Olympia qualified competitors. And actually the list here is a lot longer than the men's open bodybuilding list. I want to go through these guys and again, give some early predictions for the Classic Physique Olympia and how I expect it to pan out here. So we have Darnell Ferguson, Breon Ansley, obviously last year's champ, Chris Bumstead, who took second last year, George Peterson, Arash Rabar, Danny Hester, and Robert Timms. I believe those guys were all the top 6 last year. You have Stan DeLong, Mehdi Largaini, Matteo Vu, Courage Opara, Danny Yunin, Hatham Al-Sadiq, Steve Lorius, Peter Duper, Regan Grimes, Ali Shamsgamar. I feel like I'm reading the Key and Peele skit, that East and West Bowl, where they got all the crazy names. There's some weird names in this 2018 Classic Physique lineup. Terrence Ruffin, David Hoffman, Panex Pierre, Wesley Vissers, and Khalid Chikawu. All right, so let's talk about the guys on this list first. So my predictions for the top 6, we'll go with 6th place and then work our way down. So we got a lot of new guys this year that weren't in the 2018 Classic Physique Olympia. So you got David Hoffman, you've got Regan Grimes, you've got Steve Lorius, and you've got Wesley Vissers. I think all of these guys are possible top 6 prospects depending on how they look coming into the Olympia. Now with both Wesley and Steve Lorius, these were both kind of the social media guys. They had a lot of controversy when they won their shows that qualified for them the Olympia. Steve Lorius winning the Pittsburgh Pro to qualify, and Wesley Vissers winning the Chicago Pro to qualify. And the main criticism of both of these guys was the conditioning. So based on some of the comments that I saw from Steve Lorius, originally he was saying that he wasn't going to do the Olympia. He was replying to fans on his Instagram saying he's not doing it. But then he made some comments saying now he has no comment on whether or not he's doing it. So I think Steve Lorius is probably going to do it. He's probably going to pull a Regan Grimes and at the last minute announce that he's competing and try to surprise people. So let's just assume for argument's sake that Steve Lorius is doing the Olympia. So I want to talk about guys here that I think weren't in the top 6 last year that I think have a chance of cracking in. So let's look at the top 6 here. We got Breon, Chris, George Peterson, Arash Rabar, Danny Hester, and Robert Timms. So we got to look at the opportunities here for guys from last year to move down and these new guys where they could sneak up and move in. So I think Breon, Chris, and George Peterson, I think those guys are solidly within the top 6. I don't think we're going to see that top 3 go anywhere. I think they're going to be in the top 6 this year no matter what. So the 3 placings that we need to look at that have a possibility of slipping are going to be Arash Rabar, Danny Hester, and Robert Timms. Now, Danny Hester, of course, was the first ever Classic Physique Olympia, but I think as the division started to grow, the type of physique they were looking for kind of shifted away from Danny Hester's physique, and again, more towards a Breon Ansley or a Chris Bumstead. So I think Danny Hester is one of the guys that unfortunately we might see slip this year and present the opportunity for a guy to move up. So Arash is pretty good too, and Arash took 4th last year, and I think Arash Rabar, I think he's a solid top 6 guy as well, even though he took 4th. I think he's going to be a tough guy for a guy like Regan Grimes or a guy like Steve Lorius or a guy like Wesley Vissers to beat. But I think it can be done. Now, out of all these guys, Steve Lorius, Regan Grimes, Dave Hoffman, Wesley Vissers, I think honestly Steve Lorius has the best shot at placing highly in the 2018 Classic Physique Olympia. I mean, Steve Lorius, we've had our disagreements in the past, but Steve Lorius has an amazing structure for this division. Some people might say his legs are too big for this division because really a Classic Physique wasn't really all about having crazy big legs. But Steve Lorius has, the wide shoulders, the insanely small waist, and just overall, he presents a very unique classic package, which I think fits perfectly within this division. So I think out of all those guys, he has the best shot at cracking that top 6. Now, the thing with Regan Grimes is he does have a very aesthetic physique, but he's also a very big guy. I mean, this is a guy that's coming down from men's open bodybuilding. So it's going to be interesting to see where he places here because Regan Grimes is kind of an anomaly in this division. It's really going to be a deciding factor where he places on what the future of this division is going to be. If this is going to be like a light version of men's open bodybuilding, then we could see a guy like Regan Grimes win this show. But if this is going to stay classic physique and stay focused on the most aesthetic, the most classic, the best lines, Regan Grimes is going to have a hard time cracking that top 6. And here's why. I think he's a little bit too big for this division, a little bit too blocky, and he really does just look like a smaller version of a bodybuilder here. There's nothing crazy classic about his physique. So if Regan Grimes is going to do well, I feel like it's either all or nothing for Regan. It's either they decide a physique like Regan's is what we want smaller bodybuilders, and then Regan's going to win, or they say Regan's too big, he doesn't belong in this division, and they don't place him that well. They place him like 7th or 8th. But I do see Regan certainly being a top 10 guy at the Olympia. His physique is just that good. So for the sake of these predictions, let's just assume the judges say we want to keep it as classic as possible. We're not looking for light bodybuilding. We're not looking for just a smaller version of a men's open bodybuilder. We are looking for the most classic physique. So in that scenario, I see a guy like Regan taking a place like 6th or 7th. So let's say Regan's in 7th. I would say Wesley Vissers would follow up that by placing in 6th. So to allow for that, let's say Danny Hester moves down to 8th. And Robert Timms moves down to 9th, because I really do think the crop of guys coming in now is just a whole nother level of competition compared to last year. The division is growing so fast, and the physiques are getting so much better, so much quicker. I feel like these newer guys are going to overwhelm a lot of these guys that have been there the past 2 years. So let's say 9th is Robert Timms, 8th is Danny Hester, and 7th you're going to have Regan Grimes. In 6th, I would say Wesley Vissers. I mean, it's his first Olympia ever. I'm a big fan of Wesley, but, you know, there's really no way to prepare for your first Olympia. There's no way to know what to expect. It's very early on in classic physique. It's kind of hard to tell what they're looking for exactly, if Wesley's physique is going to be a good fit, if that's exactly what they're looking for or not. Again, a lot of people will say that Wesley is like a young version of Arnold Schwarzenegger, and that's great, but we don't know for sure if that's exactly what they're looking for in classic physique. They might not want a young Arnold. They might want a unique, new classic physique. So in that case, I would place Wesley in 6th. Now, I think 5th place is kind of wide open here. So Dave Hoffman, he's a newer guy, very well conditioned, and that's really his calling card, is being crazy shredded. And Steve Lorius is a guy who has good structure, but he hasn't yet came in crazy shredded. So either Steve or Dave are going to take that 5th place spot, in my opinion. If Steve comes correct, I think Steve takes it and Dave places somewhere else. If Dave comes in like he always comes in, which is super shredded, and Steve doesn't, I think Dave's going to move up to a place like that 5th place spot and beat a guy like Wesley or beat a guy like Regan, because Dave's conditioning is so great. So I'm going to go ahead and keep Arash in that top 4, because I think Arash has been improving more and more, and his physique is starting to fit into that division better and better each year. So let's go to the top 4 here. So I'm going to have Arash still in 4th. I'm going to have George Peterson. He's a great classic physique guy. George Peterson is a beast. I still have him in that top 3. I think the only placings that are going to change within that top 4 are going to be Chris Bumstead and Breon Ansley. I think Chris Bumstead is going to do enough this year to beat Breon and take that top spot. And we're going to have a new classic physique Mr. Olympia this year in Chris Bumstead. So those are my early predictions, guys, based on what we've seen so far from all these guys on social media. We're less than 10 weeks out right now, so we've got a decent idea of what they're going to look like. We've got the official list here. So let me know what you guys think. How would you guys place this year's lineup at the Classic Physique Olympia? Let me know in the comment section below. And please give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Nick Strength and Power, signing out.